All right, the microphone is working? Yeah, it is. Perfect. And the screen is there as well. Good morning, everybody. After the party yesterday, which I unfortunately missed because I was flying in from the States, but I hope you had a great time, and kudos to those people who made it here that early, given that apparently the party was a huge success, from what I heard. Okay, so who could predict something like this? I don't know, maybe many people, but the big question really is if you do something and you might already anticipate what's going to happen, for example, having a glass of beer or wine or whatever is your favorite drink, maybe you can even do something better, which is also taking the right course of action. And this is really what prescriptive analytics is about. I'm sure some of you heard this term before. I personally think it's actually much bigger, much more valuable, and much more important than predictive analytics. And that's coming from somebody who's working in this field for 15 years. Still, I do believe that predictive is, somewhat great. Cool, I get drunk tonight. Prescriptive is much more important. I get drunk tonight, that's my prediction. And tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I need to give a speech. So better drink more water, eat a little bit more, and get my aspirin ready. All right? So this is really about figuring out what is the right course of action to survive the speech next morning. Just a quick example, since I heard the party is a good success, or has been one. But here's another one. I think this is the simplest example I was able to come up with to describe what is the difference between predictive and prescriptive analytics. If you know it's going to rain, should you bring your umbrella? Well, most people might immediately say, like, well, if I have a 100% correct weather prediction around raining, then it's a clear case. Let's just bring it. But to be honest, carrying an umbrella around with you might not be very comfortable, especially in a case you don't need it. So, for example, if you're not walking at all next day, outside, I mean, why should you bring it? Even if you're walking and you know there's also a huge storm, you might still decide to bring a better weather coat or some raincoat, but not your umbrella because, well, umbrellas in a windy situation is not really that great. Or you might figure out, well, you know what, typically I walk to work, but tomorrow it's going to rain, I don't like that. Let's go by car. If you make this decision now, keep in mind, you might not be the only person who makes this decision. So what consequence does this have? Well, more people are driving. Most people drive really not that well in rain, so everybody is going a little bit slower. That increases your commute time. You need to start 10 minutes earlier to be on time in the office for your first appointment. Simple example, actually. Tomorrow it's going to rain. But what you can do with this prediction in your brain, if you take into account all other kind of information about what your day tomorrow is going to look like, is actually already pretty complex. And that is what makes prescriptive analytics so interesting. So it's about prescribing the best course of action. In this case, bring your umbrella or take the car, but start 10 minutes earlier. But on the other hand, it also makes it interesting because it brings together so many fields of research. Machine learning, predictive analytics on one hand, but there's also a huge load of optimization involved there. You need to collect much more information beside the information you just needed to come up with a good predictive model and feed everything into some optimization schemes to figure out what is your best course of action. All right, so one could argue, if this is really the big question, how can I find the best business action? Why are we so unbelievably stupid and still look at pie charts, bar charts, and whatever kinds of charts? And actually, by the way, we will do this in 5 minutes again. We do this constantly, believing that we first can get some predictions out of whatever, some trends we see in the past, data from the past, and then we come up with some action based on our gut. I have a lot of guts, so that's easy, but based on our guts. So you look at a bar chart, trend over the last 4 quarters, and then you say, like, ooh, look at that doesn't look good. This is a downtrend. We should increase our marketing spend. What? Why? You might be right, or not. That is how decision-making is done today, and I really find it somewhat surprising that actually we are all still around. All the companies are around because we all act like that. That's pretty stupid. But that's what we do. And part of the reason, I have nothing against BI. I think BI is extremely important. If you have no idea about your KPIs, you're pretty much screwed. But this is where we're coming from. People are used to Excel, people are used to whatever, Tableau, Click, you name it, Cognos, MicroStrategy, pick your vendor of choice here. People are used to look at data through charts and make some decisions based on that. So for example, in a pure BI-like setting, In this weather example, you could come up with something, some information. In the last year, it rained on 231 days. Amazing. You can also say, let's say another example here, churn, which is a typical predictive analytics use case. Last year, we lost 5 million customers. That's 23%. Shocking. That's a disaster. 23% churn rate. You should go out of business. Terrible. Do something. Unfortunately, for those 23% it's too late. They're already gone. And now the claim for predictive analytics is like, oh yeah, if I already know, been advanced, blah, 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 then I can do something about this. Well, but the big question is, what are you doing about this? So just this information, what happened last year, is actually not helpful at all. It might serve as sort of a signal. You should do something at least, but not much more. So that's not really a good option. Then there's something I call this BI-style predictions. What I mean by this is like, a lot of BI tools are trying the best right now to do this. You get some chart, let's say line charts or a scatter plot or some bars, and then they come up with some regression line, okay? So here is whatever, sales in January, February, March, April, and so on. So of course there's a little bit of noise in there. Typical, if you're like more enterprise business, there's like the sawtooth curve, all right? We all know this, but there might be some trend curve. And now, ooh, linear regression, ooh, machine learning at its best. There's a trend line, all right? In September, we will reach 10 million in revenues. Ooh. So what? Again, this alone, first of all, I find this absolutely ridiculous. If I see this curve already, like in 2 dimensions, I look at this, that I'm getting a dotted line showing me like this curve is going to develop. Like, seriously, a linear curve or a linear line? I think I can do this in my head. But whatever, this kind of predictions we have as well. And then typically you can come up with a couple of predictions like next year, it will rain at least 200 days, let's say, or we will lose more than 20% of our customers. Yeah, that's equally terrible, but still doesn't help at all, okay? So that's also not a good idea. Let's go a little bit more classical, or actually less classical, but a little bit more modern, but more predictive. So classical predictive analytics, aha, now we're actually going down to single cases. And that is, I think, is one of the big things here, and also one of the reasons why predictive analytics and machine learning got so much attention in the past couple of years, because thanks to the big data explosion, now everybody is storing everything on a very fine granular level, always. Just throw it into the cluster and you don't care. Great for us. Why? Because that's where machine learning shines. I have information about every single event. I can make a prediction for every single event. Brilliant. Why? Because, well, there's a reason why it's called machine learning, because you don't want to make a prediction for every one of your 50 million customers in every single second of the customer life cycle. So that's ridiculous. You can't do this. Only a machine can do this, like perfect. That's really the realm of predictive analytics and the reason why it was so successful in the past couple of years. Now I can make a prediction exactly for tomorrow. Tomorrow the probability for rain is 95%. I still can't act on that, but at least I know pretty sure tomorrow something's going to happen. Or in the churn example, John Smith, one particular customer out of our 50 million, is going to leave tomorrow and is switching over to a competitor. This now allows us to act. But unfortunately, right now in the business, in the market, most people either stop there or come up with a couple of somewhat lame heuristics to do something about this. Let's go to all our churn cases and offer them a 5% discount. Wait, why 5? Why not 3? Why not 15? So every single customer is different. Every single customer is quitting for a different reason. So why is 5% the right number? I don't know. Next thing is, well, if everybody has sooner or later risk for churn, if I give it 5% discount to every single customer, even if that does not help at all, I'm effectively over time reducing my revenue by 5%. Wait, how can that be a smart idea? What's wrong with us? Seriously now, we call ourselves data scientists, and that's our great suggestion to transform the business? That's ridiculous. Still better than losing them, but still, it's ridiculous. So anyway, so that's not good. Coming to prescriptive analytics. Aha, we already discussed the rain example. So if I know I'm going to walk, well, it's not windy, bring your umbrella. If I go by car, plan for an earlier commute. In this particular case, I might also figure out that Mr. Smith is actually churning because he doesn't like our service offering, and he also finds the price too high, not way too high, but a little bit too high. And now I can actually figure out, or start to figure out, for this particular person, for this particular customer, just give him a call, tell him about our planned service improvements and our service improvement plans, blah, 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 our program, invent something, whatever, and then also give him the right amount of discount. In this case, you can figure out it's 3%. And that is really what makes it actionable. If you now embed this whole thing into another system, like Marketo, HubSpot, Salesforce, you name it, then actually you can even start making this kind of campaigns automatically. So in this case, you're not giving the people a call, but you send them an email. Hey, we make a service, whatever, improvement program. And by the way, if you make a renewal, you get a 3% discount. So you can fully automate this whole thing. And that's really what excites me, because now all of a sudden, if you think about like smart machines and everything else, well, that's A, smart, B, it's actually actionable smartness, and C, we actually do something. I'm not exporting this whole thing to some Excel file and give this into the hands of somebody and say, like, well, make your campaign. Well, I just make the campaign. I just do it. So I think that is really the important point here about prescriptive analytics. If you stop on the predictive level, that is better than nothing, don't get me wrong. But if you go to the next level, you can make a true impact. You can automate and embed those things. We call this, we operationalize those predictive models. And I think this is really the whole trick of predictive analytics to begin with. That is why we create those models. We want to know what's going to happen, and we want to improve. If you don't act, we don't improve. All right. So I would like to show you a quick example at least, and that's something, very nice data set if you want to analyze something around this. That's called the Fatality Analysis Reporting System, FARS data. If you Google it, you will find a system, well, the data access is actually pretty much a pain, but you will find a system from the US government where they collect information about all kind of car, or in general accidents, traffic accidents, over the past, I think 10, 15 years. So the data is actually a little bit messy. It starts with that the data format changes every 3 or 4 years, which makes it a bit different to combine all the data. It's also completely coded, meaning they are all numbers in the data, but you need to figure out what each number means. If you're interested and want to use RapidMiner, by the way, I'm happy to share all the processes and the data sets and everything with you. So the thing is, after you transformed all this data, you have information about the kind of accident, so who was involved, a car, how many drivers, or one driver typically, but how many people in the car, was it with another car, was it just the car driving against a tree, with a bicycle, with a pedestrian. So you get all kind of information, and you also get information about the environment, so what happens here, what was the weather condition, was the driver drunk, was the driver, for example, of a motorbike, was the driver wearing a helmet or not? All this kind of good information. And in addition to this, you get the information for each person. Is this person, well, was this a fatal accident? Was this person dying in this accident or not? Was there an injury? How severe was the injury? So I create a lot of processes, and you see a couple of those bullet points there for analyzing this data. And again, I'm happy to share those with you. But just right now to the results. So this was a total of about 250,000 people are analyzed there. And you see there's this pie chart. Okay, now we are still in BI phase. You see this pie chart up here. There's basically 100,000, so about a third of the data points, or about the people who died actually in the accident. A lot of injuries, and then, well, there's a couple, of course, non-injuries. Well, then you can ask all kinds of questions. So for example, let's start easy here. First thing is, the hour of the day. Well, I could have been asking you before, what would you estimate? And indeed, if I ask people, most people say, well, probably in the afternoon hours after work. You're still upset from work because it wasn't a great day. You're tired and everything, you drive, and indeed that is true. Between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., there's the highest amount of accidents there. Day of week, another interesting thing. I don't know, in the US, people don't really say this, but I think here in Germany it's pretty common that people believe people driving on a weekend drive worse than the people during the week. Wochenend, what is that, or Wochenendfahrer or something, I don't know. So Sonntagsfahrer, I think we say. So the thing is, that is indeed true. So it's actually not the Sunday, it's a Saturday, but indeed weekends, there's much more accidents there. You can actually look, this is really like BI-like stuff, but I just want to share this with you. A couple of more interesting things. More accidents in summer than in winter. Another surprise for me. Actually, the first real surprise here. And also very important, maybe the question, are more females or more males? So what about the gender of people causing accidents? And yeah, clear case, females are the better drivers. I knew it actually all the time long, but now we have the proof. You could argue, well, there are more male drivers, and that is true. In total, there are 55% of all drivers are, or 58 or something, are male, but 67% of all the accidents caused by males. So that's, I didn't do a significance test, but I'm pretty sure actually that is significant. So yeah, we are the worst drivers. Good to know. Or not. So now we actually enter the realm of predictive analytics. So that is, the first thing was just like a little bit of BI stuff to get used to the data. So first question is, what are the most important influence factors? So you see this list on the left here, and the first and most important one is the question if you have been ejected from the car. And the top left bar chart there shows you the result. If you have been totally ejected, you're very likely pretty much dead. So not a lot of chance actually to survive this accident. If you're not ejected at all, that's pretty good. There was also a category partially ejected. You can guess how likely it is to survive that one. Another important, the second most important one is restraint system. So that's basically your shoulder and lap belt and helmet and all these kind of things which should protect you. That's difficult to read on the top right. But the two columns on the right side are actually for the shoulder and lap belt for the people who have been driving in a vehicle. On the right side, there is actually the people who are using a shoulder and lap belt, and you can see the green bar there. There's a good likelihood that you can survive. The second from the right, that's basically you're not using the belt, and you see, yeah, it's a good idea to use it. It's a much higher likelihood to survive the accident. Of course, there's also a much smaller likelihood to be ejected out of the car if you're wearing the belt. So those things are correlated, of course. Interesting question also about helmets. And don't get me wrong, don't quote me with this, don't cite me, but if you're driving on a motorbike and you have a serious accident, doesn't really matter if you wear a helmet or not. You're dead in both cases. I would still wear one, because for less serious accidents, I think still helpful. But up to you. So anyway, so then child restraint system, also you can't read it, but just for all people with children, the rear-facing are indeed a little bit better than the front-facing. So if you want to buy a new kind of child restraint chair or something, the rear-facing are indeed a little bit better. So I speed up a little bit because I want to talk about the prescriptive stuff, but alcohol also I found interesting. Yes, if you drink more, it's more likely to die in the accident, but reality is that's of course not really the case. That's sort of like an indicator of some other latent variables here, because what really happens is if you drink more, you are slower when you brake, you actually have a slower reaction time, and that is the real reason why the accidents are more severe. But so in general, not a good idea. This is not per mil, this is the percentage, like in the US, I think 0.2%. 2 promille? Well, I'm pretty much, yeah, whatever. I couldn't walk, definitely not drive. Anyway, good. Age is, by the way, stop driving when you're, let's say 70. That's a good idea. So, good. So we discussed those here. So now the prescriptive part. Now what we can do is we have those 250,000 cases. We created a model which is able to predict the likelihood of survival for those 250,000 people. And I can now actually feed some information about myself into this model. I'm in the age bucket between 25 and 65, not telling you exactly where. I am male. I never drink alcohol, at least not when I'm driving. I never drive faster than 50 miles per hour. And that's, of course, also not true. So, and I live in Boston, in New England, and as the name suggests, New England, that's also a lie, so of course it's always raining and everything. But anyway, so there's some data about myself, and in this case, if I take this model for the 250,000 people, I feed this information about myself into this model, I can now also start an optimization scheme trying to find the best combination for a vehicle make and a body type in order to reduce the likelihood of fatality in accidents. So basically, I define my personal situation, I take this personal situation and the model, I feed everything into this optimization. This now tries, and by the way, this one here is a pretty much simple brute force approach here. So I try all the about 100,000 combinations of different vehicle makes and body types. And for every single combination, I make the prediction how likely is it to survive, and then I pick the body type which is giving the highest likelihood for survival. So I should drive a Dodge. If, for example, the young lady here in front, I don't know your name, but we don't have time for getting used to know to each other. So age, of course, under 25, female. I just assumed you might drink alcohol from time to time. Maybe that's wrong, whatever. So I just picked you randomly. So your typical driving speed is 90 miles per hour, which is about 130, 140 kilometers per hour. I think that's appropriate, and always in rain. In this case, and that makes me really almost angry, you should buy a Datsun Nissan, but you still have a lower likelihood to die than me. Maybe I should start drinking and driving, I don't know. So whatever you learn here, I take no responsibility or ownership for whatever accident you're creating in the future, okay? So anyway, well, I now have 3 seconds left for marketing. And just give them to me, please do this. So RapidMiner is an open source platform actually to do all this kind of things. You can create all those visualizations, you can create the machine learning models, you can actually also use all kinds of built-in optimization schemes, and even nicer, this whole deployment bucket there is something where you can take all those results and feed them into other business applications like whatever, Salesforce, Marketo, and the other stuff I mentioned. I really would love to talk about this value chain or journey. I don't have time for this, but if you're interested, visit us at our booth, because I think that is actually quite something people can relate to, how they actually create those models and deploy them. And, well, it's open source. You can download this, have fun, talk to us, use it. It's hundreds of thousands of users globally who love this product. I love this product, but I'm somewhat biased as a founder. So I would say have fun with this, and if you have any questions, please fire up. Thank you.